Hey guys, welcome back, it's Meg. Today we're going to be going over a 25 Tyrannical Solea. In the first phase here, she goes from 100 to 40%, and then after 40 she phases where you are going to be dodging things as well as soaking stars. But in this first phase she is just spawning ads, so we're going to tank her in the corner over here. We have our relics as well. The reason that we tank her in this corner is because the assassins that spawn will always spawn very close when you are tanking her in this little area here, because it will get stuck on like the boxes and stuff and they won't be out in the middle of nowhere, so you have to kick them in and everything. We are also going to be using Spear of Bastion to keep them in melee. They will jump out, but then they'll immediately get dragged back. This works the same way with Ursul's Vortex if you have a druid. Normally I like to do the collapsing stars myself because I know my cooldowns, my externals, and everything like that, but in this case I was letting our dude do the first phase stars, and then when we start to get closer to the DPS check, we are going to be swapping and I will be doing a majority of them. You can make this fight significantly easier by pushing her to 40% before she gets that last star out. But if you can't, you want to hold DPS so that you're not trying to soak the collapsing star while also trying to line up all of the other lines, and then you're going to be taking that big hit of damage when that goes off. So if you can push before she gets that star out at 40%, do that. If not, make sure you're holding DPS or assigning personals. With pretty much any high Tyran fight, your main issue is going to be mana. It may also be getting one shot, so you need to be on top of managing your defensives that you have, other people's defensives, as well as your healing cooldowns. And then you want to also make sure that you are keeping up on your maintenance healing by keeping your Renewing Mist spread, and then using that Vivify Cleave that will save you a bunch of mana in the long run. So this is about a 6.5 minute fight, maybe even a little bit longer, so you're going to get a couple rotations of each of your cooldowns, so you want to make sure that you are using them as you can and try not to be so stingy with it. I fall into that habit a lot where I'm like, no, I'll just do this by myself, I don't need a healing cooldown, but then I'll end up running out of mana. So want to make sure definitely that you are utilizing those cooldowns as best you can. So we were able to push her to 40% before she got that last collapsing star out. This is really, really good because that means that we can just focus on getting our lines and we don't have to worry about anyone getting double tapped or anything like that. I will usually use a cooldown here, but sometimes what happens is we will hold them and then use them on a second one. If someone communicates with us that they can't make it to their star, which means that we will have to do a second soak, then I will hold my cooldown and use it for when we take the bigger damage hit because of the debuff that we received from the first one. We accidentally messed up our lust, so we went ahead and used drums instead, and then we are going to pull her over into this corner. It makes it really easy to dodge everything, and you don't really have to worry about something sneaking up on you from behind because the stars don't come over here. This is where I start taking over the collapsing star soaks. We have the relocate, and then they spawn the collapsing star, and then there is also going to be the avoid portion of this. The hyperlight nova goes out at the same time, so you want to make sure that you are keeping people topped. I went ahead and popped crane here, just so I could build stacks, run out, pop the star, run back in, build stacks, spend stacks, etc. But the really important thing on this star and on one later in the fight is to make sure that you are getting at least that first one done before those circles go off. You want to make sure that you're not getting knocked back into one, but it does make it significantly easier to heal because you're not as rushed to get all the soaks out if you can just get that one before you have to get out of the big circles that are AoE. Back into the center, B is not able to make it to his star just because he's a warlock, he's pretty slow. So I end up using Cocoon on myself, and then we are going to get a second Hyperlight Jolt here. I called for defensives. We see block, altar, we see wall, and commanding shout all go out. So everyone is safe there, but it is a little bit scary when something like that happens. We definitely don't live a third. So I do have Fallen Order here. I also still have Revival and Diffuse, but I am going to actually be drinking a mana pot at some point during this fight. I'm using the Spiritual Clarity. It is the drink pot that you sit and you're considered like asleep and you can't move the channel pot. I used that because I didn't want to be spending my own health, but I also needed more than just the normal mana pot was going to give me. So once again, before the fragmentation, we are going to try and get that first soak going so we can let Fallen Order do all of the healing, and then I'm going to line myself up so I can soak one during the fragmentation without getting knocked into one of the spears. That is really important. You don't have to do that, but again, it just makes it significantly easier because you're not rushed. Trying to do my best on keeping all of my renewings out as well. I don't really have many cooldowns except for Revival now, which I like to use on kind of like an oh shit moment, either for the power overwhelming phase where we're going to be taking the hyperlight jolts, or if it is like a double stack of the soak if I didn't soak the collapsing stars quickly enough. So at this point I still have Diffuse, I also have Revival. Everyone else has a couple of cooldowns, you know, we have Alter and Mortal Coil and things like that, so they'll be able to take care of themselves. I did Diffuse there, just to kind of help with the mana, because at this point I was actually starting to get concerned. I'm going to sit here when I think that I am safe from the fragmentation, because I don't want to have to interrupt it. So I sit on this last one, and then I have to stand up just slightly early, but it's not a huge mana loss. We have the relocation, and then we have our collapsing star spawning pretty far away. So I'm gonna go ahead and Tiger's Lust myself and just be hopping into these. I want to make sure that I'm not getting knocked back into one of the circles, and then we're gonna just keep on soaking. I have Renewings out, so we're relying pretty heavily on Vivify Cleave here. I also do have Revival as well as Cocoon if needed. I went ahead and threw Cocoon on our Warlock because he didn't have any defensives. I also made sure that I had my Essence Font Hots out, and then we popped Revival. I'm gonna let the last orb expire just because I don't want to be out of melee. It came down pretty close to the wire here in terms of DPS. Our warrior gets hit by one of the fragments, but we are just gonna go ahead and try and taunt people before we end up dying to this double soak. I did step slightly away, as well as popping Fort Brew, because if you get hit with 2 lines, you are going to take a significant hit. We have block here, wall, as well as my Fort Brew still running, and we're just going to go ahead and try and get a Todd off with Fort Brew up, and that is the end of the key. I hope that this was helpful for you guys. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitch, Twitter, Discord, or in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.